It's no secret these days that gamers have begun to wake up to the predatory practices that certain publishers and developers push forward. Most of my content for the past few months has been centered around that very topic, for a variety of different reasons, and the attitude is becoming more and more widespread that games containing loot boxes or invasive microtransactions as a whole are unacceptable, especially when they are in full-priced $60 titles. There are some concessions made where cosmetic-only stores are less of a focal point, depending on price tags, or monetization in free-to-play games is somewhat overlooked. But by and large, the creeping trend of monetization within the AAA space has been thrown under the spotlight, and publishers are starting to squirm. Some companies, like EA for instance, are somewhat adapting. With their newest game, Apex Legends, there are indeed loot boxes, which can easily be classified as gambling by most, but are somewhat still largely unregulated, though the wheels are turning to clamp down on them now, it's just a matter of time. But on the other end of the spectrum, some companies are regressing. Activision Blizzard is the leader among that pack, and just pulled their most brain-dead move to date. Activision Blizzard has been having a rough go of it lately, not from a quarterly revenue perspective with 2018 logging record high profits, but from a public relations point of view. The company has become hated, for many reasons, but chief among them for perceived laziness and greed. Activision Blizzard waited after the release of Black Ops 4. They patiently coasted along until the review cycle was finished. Players had bought their game, settled in, and then they unleashed their monetization, and they simply will not stop. First, it was cosmetic purchases. On top of their initial $60 price tag and expensive season pass, then they added in items like a simple red dot or a reused smiley face. And now, they have gone 15 steps further and crammed in straight up loot boxes, ignoring the current perception of both their brand name and the loot box concept in its entirety. These loot boxes are also not just cosmetic, with some rewards containing actual XP boosts tied to weapons, and all of this comes as an additional step on top of existing and lazy microtransactions, while the Call of Duty Zombies mode itself is also separately monetized, with an RNG crafting system akin to gambling, yet again, and a season pass. On a surface level, this decision may seem utterly ridiculous, and it is, but when examining the track record of Activision Blizzard and their forward-looking trajectory, the picture gets a bit clearer. Activision Blizzard recently lost the rights to the Destiny franchise. The Destiny IP will remain with Bungie, and the two companies split apart early without finishing their 10-year contract. Activision has been claiming up till that point on numerous occasions that Destiny was not performing as well as they had hoped, while Bungie projected a different stance, claiming they were in fact happy with the content. This was a clear example of Activision Blizzard's motivations and how they are at odds with their own staff, and in complete opposition to the player base. While all of this was occurring, Activision Blizzard was also forcing Blizzard itself, a subsidiary company they own, to cut costs and find incentive programs to decrease staff employment numbers. And flash forward to more recently, as Activision Blizzard announces record high profits in their earnings call, they lay off about 8% of their entire workforce, close to 800 jobs. As if all of this weren't enough, you have moments like this, where a $15 million enrichment package is being given to a single executive while hundreds of workers are laid off. Lazy products are produced, and the company's brand appeal is in the toilet. Now, as Bungie split from Activision Blizzard, it was made clear that Activision Blizzard would be focusing on alternative earnings methods. At the time, it was pretty ominous, but now we know exactly what that means. That means loot boxes, not just cosmetic ones either, and retroactive escalation of monetization on previous titles, specifically Call of Duty. With the loss of Destiny, record high profits in 2018, and the downturn in Blizzard, the developer's release schedule due to their focus on mobile titles like Diablo Immortal, which absolutely blew up in their face, Activision Blizzard as a publisher has a very weak roster for 2019. It would seem that the only large titles they will be launching are the new Call of Duty and Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, and because of this relative lack of releases, they will need to monetize what they do have even harder. In 2018, Activision Blizzard launched multiple different games and earned large chunks of revenue from DLC offerings for titles they no longer own, like The Forsaken for Destiny 2. They also scraped the bottom with their existing Call of Duty game, and all of this culminated in record high profits on their balance sheets. Moving into 2019, they have lost some of those revenue channels, already scraped the bottom on their existing annualized franchise, and laid off workers to the tune of hundreds, just to keep shareholders happy, because record high profits were still, and I quote, disappointing. Activision Blizzard will need to try to make up the differential they are about to absorb by monetizing Call of Duty or Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice even further. further than selling a dot on the screen, further than reusing cosmetic assets from previous games with zero shame, and further than non-cosmetic exclusive gambling loot boxes that do not even display the reward odds on screen. Loot boxes are a hot topic. To some, they are a simple case of don't like it, don't buy it. Miss me with that ignorant shit. I have known friends that struggle with gambling addiction. Loot boxes are gambling, no doubt about it. Gambling that is marketed and sold to an audience well below the legal age required, within the United States at least, to participate in traditional gambling activities. And there are stories like this one, where users admit their struggles and outline how deeply ingrained the addiction to loot boxes can be. Ken's Gold spent upwards of $15,000 on digital loot crate gambling, to the point where roughly 90% of his paychecks, working multiple part-time jobs, would go straight into the game. These types of addictive spenders are the reason the format is so profitable. If you can get $15,000 from one user, that's equivalent to hundreds of copies sold from one person. Companies can absorb the negative PR backlash because below the radar, their average profit per user is increasing at an exponential rate the more they prey on those who are susceptible. Recently, the landscape felt like it was shifting. Companies have been backing off from full-price $60 games that also contain cosmetic microtransactions, also contain loot boxes, and are so blatant about their greed that even the most docile of gamers begin to feel uncomfortable, but not Activision Blizzard. Oh no, no. Activision Blizzard has been pushed into a corner where their greed can do nothing else other than consume them. They need to continue their unsustainable growth, but they can't. They have lost cash flow pipelines, cut jobs, taken huge hits to their publicity, and now are resorting to tactics that were scandalous at best a year or so ago and are now all but illegal. If I had to make a prediction, 2019 is the year Activision Blizzard falls apart. With such a weak roster, they will be forced to pervert the new Call of Duty to such an extreme, it will finally alienate the core fanbase it has managed to hold on to through thick and thin. Without a safety net of further releases to lean on, with Overwatch seeing a downturn in its profitability based on previous cycles, and a negative feedback loop in full swing based on their now completely transparent greed, they will fail to get even close to the growth their shareholders are expecting. Their stock price will plummet, as it already has during previous months. They will get hit with the investor backlash, again, as they already have been, where they were investigated for potential fraud following the Bungie split, and all of this will combine to see a company limp onwards at a fraction of its current size and valuation, while consolidating its properties, cutting its projects down to a bare-bones framework, and becoming an example of how exactly not to act as a AAA publisher in the gaming space. Activision Blizzard has also been consistently reporting a decline in active player count. For 3 quarters now, the active user metrics across their entire spread of games has gone down. And if you compare that to their increasing revenue, it becomes obvious they have abandoned the idea of mass appeal based on well-crafted products, and embraced the idea of squeezing the remaining fans till they cough up every last penny. But as the island shrinks around them, they can only squeeze so hard, and their current business model is completely unsustainable. Call of Duty Black Ops 4, with the addition of loot boxes that are not simply cosmetic in nature, now has a monetization model that would be unacceptable even in a free-to-play game. The game is like an onion, layer after layer of stink that makes you cry, and you constantly think to yourself, why am I even peeling these layers back? It just sucks. The fundamental gameplay is good, but Activision Blizzard knows this, and has obscured it with uncomfortable and unfriendly money-grabbing tactics. A final example I have is from The Verge. The article outlines the process that a gamer by the name Cadence Likes VGs underwent to disable loot boxes within a game she enjoyed. The game was Path of Exile, and personally I love Path of Exile. It's free to play, contains its microtransactions almost exclusively to cosmetics, and those cosmetics are often very aesthetically pleasing. Cadence reached out to the developers and quickly received a response after asserting that she loved the game, truly wished to support and continue to play, but could not do so if the gambling crates remained active. Grinding Gear Games worked with her to disable the crates until a date of her choosing. This was specific to her in order to prevent personal gambling, since she was self-aware of the problem and could not control the addiction. I have a great deal of respect for Grinding Gear Games and Path of Exile, but it is very obvious that developers and publishers are fully aware of the fact that they are marketing a product where gambling is available free of oversight. Activision Blizzard is doing the exact same thing, but not in a free-to-play game, in a full-priced game that monetizes every facet of the experience, and unlike grinding gear games, Activision Blizzard does not have an upward, healthy, and relatively sustainable pattern of player retention, public interest, and community goodwill with a reliable release schedule. Instead, they have dwindling products, escalating monetization, and are running headlong into a brick wall. As a final proof of the top-down format that monetization employs, there is an article from PC Gamer which interviewed various developers. In that article, it is discussed how management, or the publisher, dictates that there will be microtransactions and what will be in said microtransactions. This yet again underlines that actual artistic developers are not the driving force behind the bulk of the predatory industry decisions. The publishers are. Companies like Activision Blizzard. They destroy the otherwise successful games produced by hard-working programmers and continue to run the current games industry into the ground. Loot boxes in Black Ops 4 are completely unacceptable. Every week it's a new low for one of these AAA publishers, and there isn't much runway left. But yeah, that's it. Not much more to say. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. We have esports merchandise with custom name, gamertag, and number, plus some gaming communities like Facebook, Discord, and our own forums, plus more too, but enough rambling, I'll cut it there. As always, thank you all for watching. Have a nice night.